Now, this report is on extreme confinement, or a practice known as deadlocking. And the author is a whistleblower. And she worked at Rikers Island as a clinical supervisor for mental health. And this practice is, I don't know how to, like, it is monstrous, absolutely monstrous. And this particular segment, I think it does highlight how many prison guards or people involved in prisons are just sick people who enjoy having authority over other people in order to better hurt them with less oversight. Because in deadlocking, the prisoner is simply kept in a cell for weeks or months without going outside or getting breaks. And a lot of y'all are like, oh, this sounds a lot like solitary confinement, which is bad in itself. But I need to remind you guys that these people are mentally ill, right? It is it is by no stretch of the imagination a surprise to think that these people descend further into mental decline. And to make matters way worse, the prisoners who are in here, they don't get medication. The guards don't even have to document this, right? And this practice was widely accepted as normal around the prison. Now, this lady, she made it out, and she blew the whistle after she left her job with them, right? And it goes to show, I think, that really evil prevails when good fails to speak up or act. Or maybe everyone that accepted this practice are simply demented, troubled people. I like to think of the former, but institutions are, I would say, very good at normalizing corruption and just practices that are just generally repulsive, right? They have this thing where essentially providing subtle pressure to establish this culture for people to not ask questions, right? And people need to understand, like, this idea of whistleblower and whistleblowing. This lady took a lot of risk, right? Despite being in another particular job or whatever, and she was smart about getting into a new job before she did that, because many times I think a lot of us have this illusion about the life of a whistleblower after blowing the whistle, right? Because a lot of these guys, they don't find refuge in Russia. They don't get like happy endings where the government decides to become a good guy and help them. And in fact, many of these corporations and institutions have protocols to get rid of or make life extremely difficult for people who decide to talk about the cultures and the ways in which they do things. A lot of these guys just simply go crazy, lose their families in terms of like they end up like not killed, or not having their family members killed, but actually having to like move away from them at some point because of like breakups and stuff like that. And in terms of this Renaissance sermon, I think crazy. I feel like I mentioned Pisces a lot, but I think Pisces is something that we should really understand here, because this represents a spectrum of things, but I think it really does hammer on, particularly in this segment, the idea of ruling over prisons, isolation, as well as mental health, right? So my practice in terms of the way I'm looking at, or the way my method for studying astrology and using astrology is called zodiacal alchemy, right? And it's important that we realize in zodiacal alchemy that coupling a lot of these situations can be beneficial in some ways, right? In terms of coupling rulerships, right? So like in the right way, you have to do it, right? You have to treat this like an art and a science. It's not, it's not smart to, you know, I mean, to essentially put a prisoner Pisces in isolation Pisces, because that would definitely result in or exacerbate mental health issues Pisces. But we got to realize that there's a very real combination that could take place here, right? Because in this case, the prisoners, the guards, the culture didn't care about the inmates. They didn't care about the patients. But when we do address these things, it's important that we, in zodiac alchemy, to understand that we can put these things in a certain way to where we can create better systems for healing. And like, just to give you an idea, like art therapy is something that would be Pisces related in terms of understanding, demonstrate a certain understanding and knowledge of what's going on, or awareness. Dancing as well. And I mean, I'm not gonna like expose myself with the more unconventional ways to help, but the idea is that we can do this the right way, and I would like us to really certainly start to think about that at the very least. Guys, that's the end of the segment. In terms of the musings for this particular episode, we're in the beginning of July 2025, where we talked about it earlier in this episode, how the administration went mask off and basically announced themselves as the deep state. But I really want you guys to think about how to transform an agency, particularly like, let's say, the FBI, into something that benefits society and benefits the quality of life of people in that society, or better benefit. I'm not going to completely throw the FBI under the bus, but the question is what would you do, and what would the new focus be? And very much just as important is, how can it gain real, genuine trust?